My name is Harper. I'm 35, and 2 weeks before my family's annual reunion, a woman from the resort called and asked whether I wanted to authorize a $3,840 charge to my credit card. There was only one problem. My parents had already decided I was not invited. Every summer, my family spends one long weekend together. When we were younger, it was camping and cheap cabins. As everyone got older, married, and had children, the trips became rental houses and resorts. Somewhere along the way, I became the person who organized them. I compared rates, called hotels, tracked room requests, remembered check-in times, and made sure nobody accidentally booked the wrong weekend. My younger sister, Savannah, who is 32, liked to joke that I was the family travel agent. My brother, Elliot, who is 29, usually called me only when he needed to know how much he owed or whether breakfast was included. I never minded helping at first. I am organized, and I liked seeing everyone together. But over time, helping turned into being responsible for every detail while everyone else treated the work like it simply happened. This year, Mom called me in February and asked me to find somewhere nicer than usual. "Can you handle the booking?" she asked. "You're better at this than the rest of us." I found a resort about 3 hours away with a pool, hiking trails, a small lake, and a group rate for 8 rooms over 3 nights. The resort required a $1,200 deposit to hold the block. My parents reimbursed that deposit a few days later, but because I had made the reservation, my card stayed on file for the final balance. The plan was simple. Each household would send its share before the deadline, and the final charge would go through my card after I confirmed the amount. That was how we had handled previous trips. For the next few months, I answered questions about room types, arrival times, pets, and who wanted to be near the elevator. Then, about 3 weeks before the reunion, the family group chat became strangely quiet. Normally, the final weeks were chaos. This time there were almost no messages. I assumed everyone was busy. Then my cousin texted me privately. "Are you coming Friday or Saturday?" I wrote back, "Friday, why?" A minute later, she sent me a screenshot. At the top it said, "Family weekend final plan." Below it were room assignments, dinner reservations, arrival times, and Saturday activities. Mom and Dad were listed. Savannah and her husband were listed. Elliot and his girlfriend were listed. My cousins were listed. Even my aunt's new boyfriend was listed. My name was not. I stared at the screenshot for a while, trying to decide whether it was some kind of draft. Then I called Mom. She answered normally. "Hey, sweetheart." I asked, "Is there another reunion group chat?" There was a short silence. Then she said, "Who told you?" That answer hurt more than I expected. Not, "What are you talking about?" Not, "Of course not." "Who told you?" I said, "I saw the itinerary." Mom sighed. "Harper, please don't make this bigger than it needs to be." "I'm not on it." She told me Savannah had suggested that this year might be more relaxed if I did not attend. I asked why. Mom said, "Sometimes you get too involved in the details. Savannah feels like everyone spends the whole weekend following a schedule." I almost laughed. "You asked me to organize it." "I know, and we appreciate that, but organizing and being there are 2 different things." I sat down at my kitchen table. "Did Dad agree with this?" Another pause. "Yes." I asked, "And Elliot?" "He didn't want to get involved." "Of course he didn't." I said, "Okay." Mom sounded surprised. "That's all you're going to say?" "That's all." Then I ended the call. I did not call Savannah. I did not post in the old group chat. I did not ask my cousin for more screenshots. I just sat there thinking about how efficiently my family had separated my usefulness from my presence. They wanted the person who booked the trip. They just did not want the person. For 2 days, nobody called. Then the resort did. The group reservations manager, said the remaining balance was due that afternoon. Your deposit has already been applied, she told me. The amount remaining is $3,840. Since your card is the one on file, I just need your authorization before billing processes it. I asked one question. Am I listed as a guest on any of the rooms? She checked. No, I have your parents as the primary contact on one room, Savannah on another, Elliot. That's enough, I said. Then I asked what would happen if I did not authorize the charge. She explained that the reservation would not disappear immediately. The resort would contact the group and give them until the next day to provide another payment method. Any rooms they could not secure would be released. That mattered to me. I did not want to secretly destroy anyone's vacation. I simply was not going to put nearly $4,000 on my card for a reunion I had been deliberately removed from. So I said, please remove my card from the reservation. I'm not authorizing any additional charges. She confirmed it and said she would contact the group. 40 minutes later, Mom called. She did not say hello. What did you do? I removed my card. Why would you do that without talking to us? I actually looked at my phone for a second. You removed me from the reunion without talking to me. That is not the same thing. How is it different? Mom said the resort had told Dad they could lose rooms if they did not provide payment by noon the next day. I said, then pay the balance. We can't put that much on one card. Neither can I. You know, everyone is going to reimburse you. I said, then they can reimburse you. She lowered her voice. 3 households still haven't sent their shares. There it was. For months, everyone had been comfortable because they knew I would cover the gap first and collect the money later. I said, then the people who haven't paid need to pay. Mom told me I was being vindictive. I told her I had not canceled a single room. I had not asked the resort to remove anyone. I had simply removed my own payment method. Then Mom said the sentence that made the whole situation clear. We assumed you would still handle the financial side since you already arranged everything. I went quiet. She must have heard how bad it sounded because she immediately added, I mean, just until everyone pays you back. I said, you wanted me excluded from the family part, but included in the payment part. That is not what we meant. It is exactly what you did. That evening, Savannah finally called. She told me I had embarrassed our parents. I asked, did you know I was still expected to put the final balance on my card? She hesitated. Then she said, that was already the plan before any of this happened. Any of what? The decision about the weekend. I felt my stomach tighten. When did you decide I shouldn't come? She admitted they had discussed it almost 3 weeks earlier. 3 weeks. During those 3 weeks, Mom had asked me to change one room from a king to 2 queens. Dad had asked me about parking. Savannah herself had asked whether the resort could provide a crib for one of our cousins. They had already decided I was not welcome, but they kept sending me work. I asked Savannah why. She said, because sometimes everything has to go through you. I answered, because you send everything through me. She did not have much to say after that. If your own family told you a vacation would be more enjoyable without you, but still expected your card to cover the bill, would you pay to keep the peace or remove yourself completely? Tell me in the comments. And if you enjoy stories about family boundaries and consequences, subscribe to Real Stories of Women. The next morning, Dad texted me. Can you at least call the resort and ask for more time? I replied, you asked for a reunion without me. That includes my work. He did not answer. By noon, the family had managed to secure only 4 of the 8 rooms. 2 cousins decided the resort was too expensive once they had to pay their full share immediately. My aunt moved to a cheaper motel nearby. Savannah and her husband gave up one of the upgraded rooms they had wanted. The family dinner was moved from the resort restaurant to a casual place in town. The reunion still happened, just not the version everyone had planned, while assuming my credit card would absorb the difference. And I am glad it happened that way. If the entire weekend had been canceled, they could have spent years saying I ruined the family reunion. Instead, they got exactly what they could afford. My cousin texted me Saturday afternoon. "Everyone keeps asking why you're not here." I replied, "They know why." Then I put my phone away. I spent that weekend at home. On Saturday morning, I had breakfast with a friend. Later, I bought a new book and sat in a cafe for almost 2 hours without checking a group chat, tracking a reservation, or solving anyone else's problem. It felt strange. For years, I had believed family trips worked because I kept them working. They still worked without me. They were just more expensive, less convenient, and finally someone else's responsibility. Dad called Sunday night after everyone got home. He sounded tired. "The weekend was a mess," he said. I did not respond. Then he said, "We handled this badly." It was not a perfect apology, but it was the first honest sentence anyone in my immediate family had given me. He admitted Savannah had been complaining for months that I was too controlling, and that he and Mom went along with her because they thought I would eventually get over it. I said, "You were right about one thing, I did step back." He let out a short laugh. "Yeah, I guess you did." Mom took almost 2 weeks to call. When she finally did, she said she was sorry I had found out from someone else. I told her that was not the real problem. "The problem is that you kept using me after you decided I wasn't welcome." This time, she did not argue. I also told her I would no longer organize family trips. No room blocks. No deposits. No collecting money. No putting my card down temporarily. If someone wanted a reunion, they could plan it themselves. Mom asked, "Forever?" I said, "For as long as I need." A few months later, my parents started discussing another family weekend. Mom called and asked whether I knew any large rental houses near the lake. I said, "No idea." I did know. I just was not the family travel agent anymore. And something interesting happened after I stopped fixing everything. People started paying attention to deadlines. They asked prices before committing. They stopped promising themselves upgrades they had not paid for. My family did not become perfect. Savannah and I are still not close. But nobody has asked me to float thousands of dollars for a family trip again. Sometimes the strongest boundary is not revenge. It is not a public confrontation. It is simply refusing to keep providing a benefit to people who have decided they do not value the person providing it. My family wanted a reunion without me, so I gave them exactly what they asked for. A reunion without my presence, without my planning, and without my credit card.